Hello and welcome to
Common Roots.
So this is our podcast about herbalism, history, and healthcare. Very quick disclaimer, as always, this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare practitioner before starting any herbal regimens, especially if you're pregnant, nursing, on medication, or have any special medical conditions. And I also have up here at the top of the episode just a couple of housekeeping things I guess I want to talk about before we dive in. So this is going to be our 5th episode, and I've been really excited to see all the people listening. We do want to kind of expand a little bit to not just talking about some of these like historical events, but also talking about you guys, or talking to you guys. So one thing I have been looking into is doing interviews or even just sharing people's stories about complementary medicine, about, being a member of a marginalized community and navigating the healthcare world. We really want to uplift those voices, give them a platform to talk about what they're going through, to kind of build the community that we want.
Yeah, please contact us if you want to be part of the podcast for an episode.
Yeah, absolutely. So whether you're, somebody who is, like I said, someone going through an experience with the healthcare industry, positive or negative, or if you are someone who has found that complementary medicine has helped you, whether it's herbalism or, spirituality, is it things like Reiki, acupuncture, massage. Obviously, we have discussed at length that we like to focus on things that are science-based, but that doesn't rule out spirituality, because we know that, spirituality and religion have their place in helping our mental health and even physical health.
I think anything that helps you is worth talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can be reached directly at Caitlin. My name is spelled Caitlin at Alchemy, which is our website, alchymis.co.uk. And you can send me an email directly there. We also have our Instagram for our business, which is at Alchemy Healing. Again, it's ALCHYMIS Healing, and you can DM me there. So we'd really love to hear from you. We'd also love to hear from practitioners of complementary medicine, hear your experience, how you got into this field, what you hope for in the field, and
I wouldn't
things like
mind
that.
discussing even with I guess we'd call it traditional Western medicine, practitioners, nurses. I mean, I think they are still nurses, but like the people that work at nursing homes, basically. Doctors, anything. If you have things that you want to share that you think are for the public common good, our common roots, so to speak, then please let us know. Send us a comment, an email, something, and we'd love to have you on the show.
Yeah, and help spread the word. If you are not a person that you think has a story to share, but you know somebody, please point them our way. We would love to reach out to people, and you don't have to come on the podcast and talk if you're not comfortable, but just being able to share people's stories, I think would be a fun segment in the future to kind of say, oh, this is so-and-so, they reached out to me, here's their story, or again, bring you on and do an interview. So
Yeah, even if you just send us like an email, and obviously we'll talk with you and make sure that we don't post anything you're not comfortable with. But let us know, basically. You don't have to actually be here physically in person or whatever.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. I would love to talk to people, obviously, who are in the UK or in the US, because that's kind of where our stories kind of center. But I'm absolutely open to pretty much anything.
Yeah, I don't mind talking to anyone, honestly,
Yeah.
as long as I will say I'm a stupid American and I only speak English, really,
Yeah,
and
that is
very,
the
very
downside.
poor Spanish. So probably need English speakers. But other than that,
Yeah, so
I don't care
please
if they're from,
reach out.
yeah.
Yeah, share the podcast with people you think might be interested. And just in general, if you could help us boost the podcast audience by liking, commenting, sharing, following Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I think even YouTube now we're posting in their podcast area. So YouTube Music, I think, is where that comes through. So that would really help us out. I thank you so much in advance, and we look forward to hearing from you. Got that out of the way now. So I'll dive into today's episode is titled D for Dogwood.
And
Woof.
I am Cheshire. My pronouns are she, her. This is my darling, lovely wife.
Yes, I am Caitlin. My pronouns are also she, her. We are the hosts of this lovely podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I am a practicing herbalist. We live here in Brighton.
And I have approximate knowledge of many things and a lot of opinions. And I'm chatty. And I laugh a lot. Sometimes even at things I probably shouldn't be laughing at, but it's sort of in me to just always be laughing, I guess. I don't know.
It's one of those
I don't
things
always
where-
think it's funny, but I do always laugh because I'm a bit neurospicy.
So today's episode, we are kind of a counter to our serious topics of last week. I think what we're going to probably do is kind of alternate between the difficult things to talk about and stuff that's a little more light and but still educational, hopefully. So today we are going to be talking about ancient Egypt. Because ancient Egypt had a ton of medicine that we know about thanks to really well-preserved documentation, which I will talk about. And yeah.
I used to be obsessed with ancient pagan faiths, basically. But many, many years ago when I was a child, and now I'm old, so it's been a while. But I pretty much only really know two things about ancient Egypt. I mean, I have approximate knowledge of many things, as I've said. But I know that the distance from Cleopatra to the pyramids, I think, is longer or about the same as our distance to Cleopatra. So ancient Egypt covers an absolutely gargantuan period of time. And then the second piece of information I know is a lot of our makeup actually comes from Egypt, which I find funny because it's still going basically, and now it's everywhere too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm wearing things that they would have been wearing in ancient Egypt with more. It's constructed in a different way, but maybe not even necessarily a better way in some cases. But yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly like you said, the entirety of what we would call quote unquote ancient Egypt actually spans a period of 3,000 years.
Wow.
So yes, it is a huge category basically that they just threw everything in.
Yeah, I mean, imagine talking about Britain 3,000 years ago, so 1,000 BCE. Mm-hmm. And then today as the same.
Basically,
it's all Britain whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of what we talk about a lot of what we talk about would be very bizarre to us. It would be like us talking about, King Harold of Norway, Sweden, as if he was in the same vein as King Charles. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, even more, because that was only 1,000 years ago. So that times 3.
Yeah, exactly. I just couldn't think of anything further back.
I can't think of anything in 1,000 BCE in the UK either. I'm sure there was stuff, but I'm not familiar.
3150 BCE is considered to be the beginning of ancient Egypt, which is when Upper and Lower Egypt were united into a single kingdom. This is also when the institution of the kingship was developed. It was a centralization of power within the monarchy and the beginning of the deification of kings, which is a huge part of their culture. Mm-hmm. So the very first physician ever documented in history, all of history, everywhere,
really,
was 3533 BCE. in ancient Egypt.
Did he call himself a physician? Or
he called himself a priest.
Ah, okay.
Because most of, and I'll talk about that a little bit further, most of the physicians in ancient Egypt were priests. Because as with all of these cultures, like when we talked about the Middle Ages, spirituality and medicine were very intertwined.
Yeah.
So most of the information that we have regarding ancient Egyptian medicine comes from between 2500 and 1200 BCE through the translation of numerous medical papyri is what I'm going to go with.
Okay.
I think
Papyruses?
papyrus or papyri is the plural.
Oh, okay.
Unless it's papyri, but I don't
Papyri.
think it is.
I don't know, honestly.
So, this
Papyri.
listen,
That's what. If
we're
it isn't a
normal
word, it is
people.
now.
I'm a normal person who does my best, but I
Yeah.
read a lot of words and I know a lot of words, but when I say them out loud, sometimes they sound ridiculous.
I don't know what on earth the plural of papyrus is.
I mean, it
so-
is papyri. But written down.
Oh, it is actually
Yes,
papyri.
papyri, but I don't know how to pronounce that. I think
Probably papyri.
because it's papyrus, so I'm like papyri sounds right in my mouth.
I think it's okay.
So there's like 3 or 4 really huge medical papyri that we have that were extremely well preserved and translated by modern, archaeologists and Egyptologists. Physicians on these papyri documented each and every treatment, case, and remedy that they knew of, giving us extremely detailed insight into how they learned medical science and how they put it into practice. Not herbalism related, but the most impressive medicine performed by ancient Egyptians was actually surgery. Physicians had really detailed knowledge of anatomy and physiology, and they developed really advanced surgical treatments. Tools found by archaeologists are almost identical to surgical implements that we use today, including things like forceps, a wide range of blades with different purposes, and linen sutures.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah, there's archaeological evidence of successful amputations, surgical techniques such as lancing hernias, and even the removal of tumors.
I mean, that's incredible, especially that last one, honestly.
Yeah. Tools. So for a gaping head wound, one papyrus described the process of suturing in great detail. So they actually described like bringing the edges of the wound together, and then they used special linen sutures with bone or copper and strips of linen, basically like butterfly bandages, the little strip bandages you have when you have a cut on your head that you see them use. They also used cauterization after surgery, and they described antiseptic measures such as using oils and honey in wound dressings, which prevents the growth of bacteria.
See, I do know honey is really good. I could go for hours.
No, I have a whole thing on honey
So
that we're going to
go
talk
off.
about. Not yet.
Okay.
You are so ready to go off.
But can I just
soon.
say, I know honey is super useful for antiseptic. I used to when I was much younger be into like a lot of weird survivalist stuff, mostly just because it was like fun. I didn't think it was gonna be important. Yeah, I know honey and cattails. Weirdly, the like goo that's in cattails.
Well,
is that also gonna come up?
No, because they didn't have cattails in ancient Egypt, unfortunately. But I was just saying that I also knew about that. Not just the goo, but like when you break them apart, they turn into this fluffy stuff that is absorbing.
The whole part of the cattail is good.
It's huge. That's just a fun.
But yeah,
are there cattails in the UK?
I don't know, honestly, but I know honey is like super, super good for any kind of wound care because it's so sticky that it like keeps the bacteria from getting in.
Well, there's
basically.
like actual. I'm gonna dig.
And
I have.
Yes.
Listen,
I'm so sorry.
Half of this ancient Egypt dive was just a honey dive.
Yes. If you ever, for some reason, need like a sort of a Neosporin kind of a thing, like an antiseptic, and you don't have any, and you have got honey.
Yeah.
It is a decent last shot. Yeah, I just thought that was so cool. But obviously I'm sure the ancient Egyptians maybe didn't know because they didn't know germ theory basically, right? But they still figured out that it worked. So that's really cool, honestly, because then you wouldn't die of an infection as easily if you did things like that.
Yeah. And I will say, excuse me if you guys hear me clearing my throat or sniffling. I had the worst cold last week. We had to reschedule the podcast, so I'm still a little sniffly. Not sick anymore. Not going to get anyone sick. Don't worry. But
yeah, I was also ill, but less so. But I probably won't be sniffling.
I will try and keep it away from the mic so that our lovely editor can cut it out for us.
No, I think that's okay. I love.
So, the worship of the dead and the practice of mummification actually helped a ton in their study of medical science. Ancient Greeks and Romans were forbidden from cutting open cadavers, like Hippocrates and Aeschylus who we definitely will talk about when we dig into ancient Greece. They did it, and it was kind of against the law, and it was like it was seen as like super unclean, right?
Yeah.
But this was a huge part of Egyptian culture. They cut apart bodies. They extracted organs, so they knew what organs looked like. They had diagrams of them. They knew where their location was in the body. There was all of this stuff that they knew that was actually very helpful, even if they didn't quite understand all of it. Like, they knew that the heart was the center of the blood supply,
Yeah.
and it pumped blood to all parts of your body. They also thought it was where your like sperm and phlegm and everything came from. But they had the general idea of the thing.
Yeah. They had even more approximate knowledge of many things. But you know what else? They had practical knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, for the most important things. Like, knowing that where your blood comes from is pretty relevant. But, I think that's really cool. I do know, like, Renaissance artists, totally different time frame, admittedly, were having to, like, steal bodies in order to learn anatomy, basically.
Yeah.
But so the ancient Egyptians, because they did mummification and things, it sounds like they had a pretty good grasp.
Yeah, we have like really detailed drawings that they did of the heart and like the ventricles and the tubes and everything, which is way more advanced than anything that the Greeks and Romans had.
Yeah. Because it was illegal.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it was actually straight up illegal in Greece, but it was super unclean. So the Egyptians also created a whole host of functioning prosthetics, including feet and even toes that had knuckles that could bend, which allowed amputees to continue to function and have a normal life. Herodotus, the father of history, a Greek person, about 450 BCE, wrote this about the Egyptians: "The practice of medicine is so divided among them that each physician is a healer of one disease or organ, and no more. All the country is full of physicians, some of the eye, some of the teeth, the belly, and some of the mental diseases."
That's fascinating. So they did the same thing we do in the modern day and specialized.
Yes.
Which makes some sense. I think that
Yes.
it's important to have that.
I think it's because the human body is so complex.
Yeah.
Obviously, if I go to my GP or, normal everyday doctor, they can pretty much figure out most things. But if I have like a really specific issue with like my eyes, I want to go to someone who's been studying the eye for like a decade. And the Egyptians were the same way.
But that's fast. They had that many doctors. So was healthcare like accessible to the common person, or was it only for the rich?
It was, I would say, not accessible to the poor.
Okay.
But ancient Egypt had a huge middle class of artisans, merchants, and I guess we would call them like working middle class people who were not wealthy by any means, but were well off enough. And they did find that they had access to medicine and beauty products and things like that.
Oh, that's interesting. It's very similar to how it is today, honestly.
Yes. Yeah, so obviously the ancient Egypt had both slaves and people in poverty, and unfortunately those people did not have access to medicine. Although slaves were taken care of by their masters medicinally, but
only to protect their investment if they felt like it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So on to the practice of actual like medicine, like pharmacology and herbal medicine. Egyptians had a wide number of treatments, from pills, ointments, eye drops, suppositories, fumigations or smoking of medicine, and medicinal baths. So here's where I get into the most common ingredient in Egyptian medicine: honey. This was used to prevent and treat infection in open wounds, and it was also used for the treatment of burns, and it was also used for a lot of internal issues.
Well, I know the first two things it actually works for. We absolutely know it works for those things with like scientific evidence and everything.
So it actually works for pretty much everything that they were using it for.
Really? Honey, even internal injuries?
Yes.
Huh.
Honey is a crazy product. So,
wow.
Fun facts about honey. I went into like a deep dive into honey when I got into this part.
I've done that many years ago when I was into survivalism. Yeah.
So honey is a natural antibacterial.
Yes.
It exhibits bactericidal activity against Salmonella, Shigella, E. coli, H. pylori, and more, including a lot of Staphylococcal and Streptococcal bacteria, which are known as the big bugs, antibacterial resistant bacteria, and MRSA. Honey also has anti-inflammatory effects and stimulates the body's natural immune responses.
I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I do know, like, babies can't have honey, right?
So infants are not supposed to have raw honey or even other honey just because it is a risk.
I assume because it stimulates their immune system.
Yes.
And they're not in a state for you to be doing things like that.
And even though it's antibacterial, raw honey can house bacteria.
Really?
In small amounts. But all it takes is a small amount if you are a newborn baby without an immune system.
Yeah.
So, honey contains over 200 different chemicals, including amino acids, vitamins, minerals, and enzymes. Honey also contains natural probiotic agents. So we've all heard of probiotics at this point. They're in a lot of like yogurts, and in a lot of other products where they're, to help basically proliferate healthy bacteria in your gut.
Yes. Yeah, I know that is way more, that's a very underexplored field, because I actually know that even if you have lactose intolerance, if you eat like a really heavy lactose diet for like 2 weeks or something, for a lot of people, because the bacteria in your gut change, even though your body isn't capable of producing the enzyme lactase that breaks down lactose, the bacteria in your gut will, or rather the bacteria in your gut that break down lactose, that have lactase in them, will survive and thrive because you're flooding your digestive tract with so much lactose. And I think that's so cool. And I got food poisoning once. And my gut was horribly messed up for a long time. And then I started drinking kombucha. And I will say, I hate the flavor of kombucha. Absolutely despise it. But I still regularly drink it. And it does a lot. It does a lot for me. It's so good for you. I would only recommend it. I consider it as more of like a medicine because I absolutely revile the flavor of it. But like, for what it does for me, it's worth it to have every single day, honestly. I don't always keep to that just because I really hate it. But I do think like probiotics are so important. But that's fascinating. Honey is both antibacterial, but then it has some good bacteria in it, basically. Yes. Some useful bacteria that won't hurt us.
Yes. It also contains potassium, calcium, magnesium, sodium, sulfur, and phosphorus, as well as trace amounts of iron, copper, zinc, and manganese.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I know it's the trouble with honey is it's also like 1 trillion calories. So you can't just eat a jar of honey like Pooh Bear or you'll die.
Sugar, right?
Yeah.
It is sugar.
It's basically pure sugar. But it's a healthier sugar maybe than like cane sugar.
It is actually a much better sugar. It's actually highly recommended for people with diabetes because of the way it interacts with your blood glucose.
Oh,
I don't remember what the word is, but I didn't write it down. But there's a way that it interacts with your or a diabetic person's blood glucose. Mm-hmm. So, very important for wound treatment, honey does not absorb moisture from the environment, which means that it creates like a watertight seal over a wound, which doesn't allow water or bacteria to enter. Application of honey as a wound dressing in modern hospitals leads to stimulation of the healing process and clears infection. Wow. Honey has a cleansing action on wounds, stimulates tissue regeneration, and reduces inflammation. Honey impregnated pads also act as a non-adhesive tissue dressing. This is really important for burns. Yeah. One thing, my dad, he actually had third-degree burns over 20% of his body. And when he was in the hospital, he said the most painful part was changing the dressings. Yeah. Because they basically, when they peel the dressing away, they take away the dead skin as they go.
Sometimes not even the dead skin, right? Yeah. It's like the blood clot that. Yeah. It's and I'm sure it makes it scar and take longer to heal.
In a lot of things. Yeah, so in a lot of burn wards, they are now using honey as a layer in between the skin and the dressings because then it peels away without causing harm. This happened to my dad back in the 80s, so they weren't doing it.
Yeah. That's fascinating. So that's ancient medicine that they've rediscovered, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in one case of a knee amputation in a young boy who had been heavily infected with pseudococcal and staphylococcal aureus and was non-responsive to conventional treatment, application of sterilized active Manuka honey dressing pads led to complete healing in 10 weeks.
Wow. 10 weeks is still pretty hard, but I mean, it
better than
sounds like he
dying
might
of a
have
staph
died.
infection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar results have been found with burns. Honey dressing speeds up the healing process, sterilizes the wound, and even reduces pain. Studies done on Fournier's gangrene showed rapid improvement with decreased edema and discharge, rapid regeneration, little to no scarring, effective wound debridement, and a decrease in mortality.
Wow. I mean, that's funny, though, because I thought I know that this is old knowledge, because I was reading a lot. I was into survivalism when I was like a child. So that was, 15 years ago, maybe?
Yeah.
So I knew that, yeah, you should put honey on a bandage and put it on a wound.
Yeah.
But it sounds like they weren't doing that in hospitals. Why?
No. Well, so there is this sort of, and this is actually a question that I had that I thought we could discuss, but basically there is this whole idea of like those old traditional medicines are not as important as our super important scientifically researched, drugs and medical applications and things of that nature. So actually research into the use of honey and like returning it into a hospital setting has only actually occurred within the last like 40 years. So like since the 1980s, they've actually been doing these studies.
Wow.
So, what is it that we can say about like how modern medicine has so abandoned a lot of these traditional methods, especially in hospital settings and in clinic settings? I think there's this stigma or stereotyping of hospitals where they're like, oh, that's like witch doctor medicine. We don't bring that into our nice, sterile, clean hospital.
You know what I do think it is, actually? Because like you said, a lot of this was tied in with spirituality. I think a lot of modern medicine rejects spirituality for maybe reasons that were well-intentioned at first, but it's also like, I don't know. I think they've thrown the baby out with the bathwater, basically, right? Because we know it works, honey. It works. Of course it works. It's worked for literally millennia, epochs even, I would say. And yet no one thought to do a study until starting in the 80s, it sounded like. And it hasn't been common practice since 1000 BCE or whatever. But really, when did it stop is what I'm shocked about.
I mean,
because I know like they kept doing that for a long time. This is like medieval medicine as well. Is a honey. You just get a linen bandage and put some honey on it. It's not that complicated.
I do wonder if it has anything to do with the industrialization of medicine. Because in the post-war like industrialization of so many industries, including medicine, I think that there was a big push for let's get this old-fashioned nonsense out of here, because there wasn't, peer-researched and backed man-focused research.
Yeah.
This was like your grandma told you to put honey on your boo-boo.
Yeah.
And so you're like, well, Dr. Science Man hasn't studied it and proven that it's
and they just didn't even bother to look into it because they said it's an old wives' tale of, forget them.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's very sad if true. But,
I obviously cannot prove that that's what happened, but...
Maybe that's where we could do a whole episode. When we get to H, we could just do honey. I love honey. I think it's fascinating. It's so useful for so many different things. I know they found honey in an ancient Egyptian tomb, and basically it turned to dust. But if you added some water to it and heated it up, it turned back into honey.
It was
and
perfectly
they ate
fine.
some.
They ate it, yes.
So, like, it literally lasts for basically forever. It's also medicine. Listen, when I was into survivalism stuff, I was like, we got to get like a big crate of honey. But we don't really have the space for that. So I'm glad I've gotten less into that.
Shout out to the Brighton Open Market, which has a honey shop with local honey So if you're in the Brighton and Hove area, go get the honey from the honey shop in the Brighton Open Market. They have so much honey. It's all local. A lot of it's from the Sussex area. It's amazing.
I do know, I haven't looked into this, but I know local honey is like a debate that I guess I don't know much about.
Yes.
I heard it was really good for you. And recently I've heard that it is maybe not, and it doesn't really matter.
So there were a lot of people who were claiming that if you have allergies and you consume local honey, you'll consume like pollen and enzymes and stuff, and it'll kick your immune system off to decrease your allergic response. Mm-hmm. And they have found that maybe that's not as true, or maybe it's not as strong as people were claiming it to be.
But any little thing helps, in my opinion, you know?
Right. I definitely think if we do an episode on honey, we could definitely look into it further.
We should. Maybe I should stop rambling about it.
Anyway, but to get back into that, how can we encourage modern science and hospitals to recapture these like old traditional medicines that we know have scientific merit?
Well, hopefully some of our listeners, you know, are in the now traditional medical industry, Western medical industry. And yeah, I mean, if you're, I know there's a university here in Brighton. If you're doing any kind of research like that, please, you know, there's things of merit that we just don't use anymore, and it's very silly. And the other thing that we can do is, I mean, we can't sell freaking honey bandages, unfortunately. Oh, well, maybe fortunately, honestly.
I mean, I will say that, like, one of the products that we are looking to expand into, I'm not trying to shill, but I am going to point
we could shill a little bit, yeah.
is herb-infused honey. Because one of the really good things that you can get, for example, like hibiscus in honey, first of all, delicious. That tart of hibiscus with the sweet of the honey, amazing. But hibiscus is also really, really high in vitamin C and a bunch of other things. And you get that in the honey.
Interesting.
So I do know, and I will say, because I know that we probably will have like vegan listeners, that honey does not count as vegan for a lot of vegans, and they have concerns about the ethics of it. And I think that's definitely something we should get into in the future if we talk about honey. But
if we do a whole episode on it.
I will say, like, for me, it is an incredibly valuable resource that bees make more of than they need. We're not taking honey from bees and then they will die.
I think the vegan reason is that a lot of less modern hives use a technique where basically they smush up some bees when they're getting the honey out.
Oh, like they harm, like you might accidentally squash a bee when you're getting the honey?
It's expected. Like there will always be a couple of bees that get squashed in your big jug of honey.
Okay, because I've seen the meme where people are like, they crush bees to make honey.
No.
That's a meme. I thought that's what you were talking about.
No. I know it's not like hundreds or thousands or whatever, but it's like you get as many bees out as you can, and then you give it a big squeeze, basically. And sometimes there's a bee that's still in it.
I understand that. And I think, again, that's an industrialization problem, right? We're not having little beekeepers who are collecting honey from their hives that they're tending to diligently. We're getting big machines to extract honeycomb and put it in a big grinder machine to squeeze all the honey out.
They do. They have it. I think it's hooked up to the hive itself. Again, I used to be so into this. You know what? Another episode.
Okay.
Stay tuned for episode H. We'll talk about honey for a solid hour.
Dang, I had set up H for Hawthorn, but I think we're going to have to do H for honey.
Well, we could do H for Hawthorn and H2 for honey. How about that?
So to get back to ancient Egypt.
Yes, please.
The Egyptians used opium and mandrake extract to create sleeping draughts to help those in pain or in need of rest. So this requires a pretty sophisticated knowledge of chemistry. Sedating someone without killing them is a science, and that is why anesthesiologists these days have PhDs.
And they get paid a ton of money because otherwise you'll die.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very imprecise, but it's like art almost, is my understanding. Right?
It is. Well, it has to be very precise.
You're right. I'm totally wrong, actually. It's very precise, but it's still a bit of an art, to my understanding.
I think it is, yes. There is a science to it, but there's also a inherent knowledge gained through experience kind of a thing.
Because I know, like, for me, I'm very resistant to a lot of painkillers. And I've had I've only been under once, but I remember that they were like surprised. Like I was still chatting to them, and then they were like, "Okay, we're gonna just turn this valve a little bit more."
Yeah. So anytime we see ancient cultures that have successfully used things like opium and mandrake, that's very impressive because it's basically those are so powerful. Even back in those days when they weren't as powerful as the modern version, they were still powerful enough that like you give somebody a little bit too much and they're not waking up.
Yeah, I know. I mean, opium.
Barbiturates in general.
Opium, it comes from the poppy, right? And that's what morphine and heroin and a lot of other painkillers, anything an opiate,
yes,
is just made out of
opiates and barbiturates both.
It's processed poppies, basically.
Yeah.
And I actually know also you can fail a drug test if you eat a poppy seed bagel, which I find...
You have to eat like 10 poppy seed bagels, to be clear.
Sure, but I still think that's pretty funny.
The lady who got busted back in, and this was like 10 years ago now, the lady who got busted had eaten 9 lemon poppy seed muffins. How many lemon poppy seed muffins can you even eat in one sitting?
Apparently, at least 9.
Enough to get a positive on your drug test. But that's a lot. So many muffins.
But I do know, like, the little teeny tiny poppy seeds that we have on the poppy seed muffins have been bred to be that way. The natural poppy seed is flippin' enormous, and then if you cut it open, it has a white liquid. That's the milk of the poppy, and that's what they were using to drug people for a very, very long time.
Yes. During my research, they actually used to make pots, medicinal pots in the shape of the poppy seed, because one of the beliefs of ancient Egypt was the symbol of the thing applied its power to a thing. So if you made an opium poppy seed shaped pot and you put medicine in it, it would be imbued with the power of the opium seed.
Huh, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, it's also probably easy to recognize what's in it at a glance.
That was the other thing too, yes.
Yeah.
They did find traces of opium in these pots, and it would be nice to identify, yeah. So ancient Egyptians also had early birth control in the form of spermicides that they made from natural, herbal products. Mm-hmm. And then they also had constructed diaphragms or pessaries.
The heart shape. Obviously, if you've seen a heart, looks nothing like the heart shape.
Yeah, like a Valentine heart.
Yeah, Valentine heart. Yes. But I can't remember the name of it, but there was a birth control drug made out of a plant that looked like that, basically.
Mm-hmm. The pods of the plant were shaped like this. That was in ancient Rome.
Yeah. And I think it was also ancient Egypt, wasn't it? It was just so popular in ancient Rome that they consumed literally all of it.
It went extinct.
Because they consumed literally all of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the Ebers Papyrus uses 328 plant-based ingredients to make 876 different prescriptions.
Wow.
It covers subjects such as neurology, ophthalmology, dermatology, gynecology, obstetrics, dentistry, surgery, and even psychiatry.
Wow.
It is a papyrus, 110 pages total. And papyrus kind of keeps going. So it's like...
Big. It's a big old scroll.
It's big.
That's
it's
awesome.
Real big.
Yeah.
Mental disorders are detailed in a chapter of the papyrus called the Book of Hearts. Disorders such as depression and dementia are both covered.
Wow.
Descriptions of these disorders suggest that Egyptians conceived of mental and physical diseases in much the same way. So they thought that an affliction of the mind was just a disease.
Yeah.
In the way that we should be thinking of mental disorders today. It's a physical...
it's tied to your mind and body and spirit are all one
and that was
thing
because,
tied together, basically.
Yeah, and that was because that they physically knew of the brain and the heart. They had these organs, and they were like, clearly, they didn't know that what the brain did exactly. They knew it was very important. They thought the heart did your thinking and feeling and everything, which is where we get the myths of, like, feeling things in your heart. But they knew that, like, this is something affecting the organ. Not just the way you feel, right?
Yeah.
And we know that mental illness has physiological manifestations.
Absolutely. It's all, I think, mental illness feeds into physical illness, feeds into mental illness often.
Yeah, but there are physical symptoms associated with 99% of mental illnesses.
A lot of them. Yeah. I think, because I know, like, my depression, a long time ago when I was first beginning to transition, I started working out to lose weight. This was before I was on HRT, so I kind of turned into like a buff guy, basically, which I hated so much that I stopped exercising altogether and gained all the weight back. But basically, for a hot minute there, I was extremely physically, very physically fit. And I did notice that a lot of the depression went away. Unfortunately, then my gender dysphoria got really bad, so I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. But I was able to. I do think like that's important, right? Like if you're really miserable, sometimes something that can help you is just going for walks, which was also almost impossible to do where we lived in America. But it's a lot easier here, and I have noticed even that my mood has lifted a lot being able to go out for walks. And I also got thick legs.
Yeah, our legs have been getting really strong since we've been walking everywhere.
Yeah,
So that is a nice benefit.
Mm.
So there are treatments described for diabetes, worms, glaucoma, and constipation. There's also a treatment for migraines that includes cold compression of the head, clearing the room, and reciting a quiet prayer. They used castor oils, figs, and bran cereal to treat constipation, which are all things that we still do today. Pomegranate juice is also an astringent that was used to reduce swelling. And the roots of the pomegranate tree contain an active ingredient named pelletrin, which is actually the chemical used today to treat intestinal worms.
Wow. That's fascinating.
So very similar to we talk about like the willow bark tree has salicylic acid that has been extracted to use as the modern aspirin. Pelletrin has been extracted and is now used as the active ingredient in dewormers.
This was 3000 BC.
Yes.
So it's been 5,000 years.
Yes.
It still works.
Yep.
That's incredible.
Yep.
Wow.
They had the acacia tree, which they used for cough remedies, and they had aloe that they used to treat skin lesions and soothe burns.
I mean, it's hard. 5,000 years is like impossible for me to grasp almost. That we've still been using medicine that long. That's the same medicine and it still works. I mean, that's the incredible thing. It's like it really is. And it just comes from pomegranate. It just comes from pomegranate and you have to process it a little bit, I guess, to get the right thing out.
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool. I really like that.
Yeah. In ancient Egypt, both men and women were doctors. Actually. In 2300 BCE, we have records of Pesichet, who is described as head of the female physicians. So not just a doctor, a head of all the lady doctors.
Interesting. See, I said he when you mentioned the first doctor, and I felt a little bad assuming
it was
that.
he. Yes, that specific one.
But I assumed it because honestly, I know that like the Romans and Greeks kind of hated women. So I was like, probably the Egyptians did too, but it sounds like not so much.
Yes. I mean, I didn't super dig into the general gender, divide in ancient Egypt, but it does look as though in regards to medicine and then therefore regards to like the priesthood, both men and women practiced freely and trained. They did have... It does look like a lot of the female physicians, kind of similar to the problem we have today. A lot of female doctors tend to go into female-focused specialties. So a lot more female doctors are becoming gynecologists and obstetrics and pediatricians and things of that nature.
I don't know that that's a problem, honestly. That makes sense because then it's like they say this feels bad and you could be like, yeah, if that happened to me, it would feel bad. I
don't have any problem per se with a female doctor going into gynecology because she's like, I'm a woman. This is the study of, the female anatomy. I want to help other women with their female anatomy problems. I just have a problem with female doctors feeling pressured to study that instead of like surgeons, for example, or orthopedics.
That's fair.
Where it's a very male-dominated field, sports medicine and things like that.
I guess what I was worried that you were going to say is it's a lot like today where like, women do a lot of the nursing and men do a lot of the more highly paid doctoring.
No, I'm specifically getting into like in the actual like doctors. A lot of female doctors feel pressured to these like girlier medicines that have to do with children and women,
Yeah.
and geriatric medicine, as opposed to like orthopedic medicine or surgery or brain science, neurosurgery, neurology, all that kind of thing. And that's just terrible. And it does seem like there was a similar divide in ancient Egypt, where most of the female doctors were gynecologists and midwives and things of that nature, and a lot of the male doctors were, dentists and eye doctors and things
So
like
it does sound like ancient Egypt also hated women just about as much as we do now.
Yeah,
Instead of
same
as much
we
as
have
the
today.
Romans and Greeks did, which was like with the burning fury of 1,000 suns.
Correct. So, one of the main and most famous names of Egyptian medicine is Imhotep, who was first an architect, weirdly enough, but then he became a physician. And he became such a famous physician that he was basically deified and joined the ancient Egyptian pantheon.
Wow. I do think that's really cool, honestly. That, like, if you're just, like, really cool in life and get to a certain point, people are like, literally a god. That's awesome, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I should be praying to Robin Williams. I feel like Robin Williams is a homie. He'd help me out.
So in light of that, I wanted to kind of do like a comparison kind of a thing. So who would you rather meet? Imhotep or an anonymous Egyptian physician?
Interesting. I see what you're saying. He does sound like a very competent person, but actually I'm going to give the answer you might not expect, and that I might want to. I almost would prefer a random anonymous doctor, because sometimes I think people get a big head, and when they get really famous, they think that, like, they know everything, and really they know their narrow specialty very, very, very well, better than anyone.
Yeah.
But then they're like, I am the best eye doctor that has ever lived, and I also think you should put this burning acid into your blood because I am so smart and everything I say is right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was kind of what I designed that question for. It's like if you were going to sit down and interview an Egyptian doctor, and you
Imhotep, for sure.
You would prefer Imhotep
for
over
an interview? Yes.
An individual physician.
Yes.
See, I think I would like to hear the story of like an everyday average physician over the glam rock story of Imhotep.
That's fair. I do think that's cool, but I also think the truth is that in order to acquire that amount of fame, it requires a lot of skill, don't get me wrong, and also like a good charisma, basically.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'd have a more interesting conversation with Imhotep than someone who might be shy and not want to talk. Even if potentially they're a better physician. But in terms of actually getting treated, whatever Imhotep's specialty is, I'd love to go to Imhotep for. But just in general, no, I'd probably go to especially because they were charging for their healthcare, I'd rather go to a much cheaper doctor who probably doesn't have a gigantic ego bigger than I can imagine and might actually,
That's fair.
listen.
That's fair.
I could totally picture. I mean, I'm slandering a man that's 5,000 years in the past, but it's very easy for me to picture with like these super famous doctors that I go to Imhotep and I'm like, I have this problem. And he's like, no, you have this problem. And now I'm going to inject some crushed up bees into your veins.
Oh, dear. Yeah. Okay. Good answer. Either way, it was a good answer.
Fair enough. Sorry, I
Something
didn't
for us
want
to chat about.
Yes, that's fair.
So back when we talked about the Middle Ages, we talked about hygiene, diet, and etc. for the prevention of disease. So the ancient Egyptians had the same kind of various methods to prevent disease, which was good 2,000 years before the Middle Ages. This included washing their hands and feet regularly. They also strongly believed in like removing the dust of the desert from themselves. It wasn't a full desert in the way that ancient Egypt is today. It was very lush and green in a lot of places, but it was still very dusty, especially in cities.
Yeah, I think especially along the Nile where all of the everybody lived.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody still lives, let's be real.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think my understanding, at least, is that basically along the Nile it's super lush, but then right outside of the Nile is, in fact, some hot as hell burning ground.
It's not as desert as it is today.
Oh, really?
It was more like plains.
Really?
Yeah. There was a lot of brush and grass.
Because I did know that in Roman times, the Garamantes or whatever in like Western Libya was like a big kingdom. And it stretches into the middle of the frickin' Sahara, basically, now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there
But back
was
then
desert
it wasn't.
beyond that. But it was
Yeah.
basically like you had the Nile, which was super lush and everything. And then you had beyond that, which is now basically
Like
desert.
savanna.
But it was more like savanna back then. And then you had desert beyond that.
Interesting. But I also imagine that, like, you'd get a wind that blows in, dust. A dust storm, basically. And I do think if I was covered in dust, I'd be like, gotta get this off just to feel like not gross.
Exactly. That's also getting into like Egyptian beauty products. They had a lot of oils and stuff that they would anoint themselves with when they went outside, because it's very easy to then just kind of scrape the oil off and take the dirt with it when you go. So something they used to use were various oils. They also used to use a lot of animal fat.
Oh, it's also a moisturizer. I imagine they have a hell of a dry heat.
And it was a sun protectant.
Oh, that's
So
smart.
if you they would smear themselves with beef tallow that had been treated with perfume, and it protected them from the sun. Don't do that today
Really?
if you're white. So the reason it worked for them is because they had darker skin and more melanin. But if you did it today and you're not dark enough, it would just cook you like a lobster in the sun.
Really? How so? Why? What do you mean?
Because the melting animal fat from the sun would...
Oh, like...
It's literally
like
like
you're
if you
being
coat...
basted.
It's literally like if you baste a chicken leg in oil and then you put it out in the direct sun.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know you're...
So if you don't have enough melanin, do not do that as a sun protectant.
My mother-in-law, your mother, I gave her a beef tallow moisturizer for her hands, and she loved that.
Very good for that, yes.
But it did have a terrible smell because it's beef fat.
You can
So
deodorize it.
Yeah, but I get that maybe putting in like
Perfume.
herbs and perfume is smart so that it doesn't, so you don't reek like you're coming out of a fryer.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of people in the modern day who anoint themselves with oil on purpose to suntan. Don't do that. You will get skin cancer. Don't do it.
Yeah.
This is your friendly herbalist reminder. Wear sunscreen.
But you can if you have darker skin, it sounds like.
Yeah, but you should still wear sunscreen with zinc or something, just because it's better.
Really?
Sometimes all the old stuff isn't always better. So specifically, another fun beauty product that we still use today, as you were discussing, and you and I, well, not you, I am currently wearing, is eyeliner, specifically the Egyptian eyeliner, which was called kohl. I'm going to make sure I pronounce it in the more like Egyptian way.
Okay.
Kohl or kohl. Kohl. So this was invented by Egyptians, which was a mixture of various minerals, including charcoal and oils. So this is the very famous sort of black eyeliner that we see Egyptians wearing. It wasn't...
Poppin'.
Yes, it wasn't just for beauty purposes, but the specific minerals and oils reflected sun away from the eye, as well as kept flies away from the face. Because it turns out when you drench yourself in beef tallow, the flies tend to follow you. There's another good reason not to use it in the modern day.
The other problem is I know they were using the Nile for all kinds of transport, but I'm sure they had carriages and horses and things, and horses like to take poops where they are. So yes. I'm sure you're walking on the road. Sometimes there's a big poop. And if you're covered in beef tallow, yeah, that's not great.
Yes. Yeah, another problem with covering yourself in beef tallow or oil is that you could attract flies. So the nice part about the kohl is that it actually protected flies from getting into your face and eyes.
But they did take care of the poop, to be clear. I'm sure. I don't actually know. Like I said, my knowledge of ancient Egypt is very limited. But I know that they did take care of it regularly, pretty much everywhere. And I had this twisted idea that they didn't, basically, based on like one street that was like the poorest street in London in
Yeah,
a specific time period in the Middle Ages. And
it's
I
sort
was
of
like,
like
yes, all of history.
it's pretty much how we were talking about in the Middle Ages. There's this like idea that like people of certain eras were like savages, and that meant that they left their feces around,
but no.
and yeah, it just made a big mess. But no, obviously
They had people, I know in Japan they had people that would go out and gather it because they'd use it as fertilizer. And actually, if it's like on trees and things, where basically the thing you're eating isn't touching the fertilizer, that is okay. On things that grow through it, like rice or something, that would actually, that'll get you a lot of parasites, so don't do that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, so to kind of dive into the more spiritual aspect of medicine, the Egyptians did believe in the power of spiritual to protect against disease. They had a lot of amulets and items that they would carve with gods of protection or creatures that were known to protect. So many items specifically intended for women and children were carved. This is me talking about archaeological evidence now, things that we have found in tombs or in other things like that. So a drinking vessel designed for an infant was carved with symbols that were found on the same symbols that were found on magic wands for protection. Things like lions, crocodiles, and hippopotami.
See, I know the crocodile is tied to one of their gods that I can't remember the name of.
Yeah.
I bet you the other two are as well. I just don't know.
So one such goddess was Taweret, who was a hippopotamus goddess, and she was the guardian of women during pregnancy and childbirth. There were statues given to pregnant women carved with the hieroglyph for Taweret as well as hieroglyphs for protection. It also included the image of a water lily, what we would know today as like the lotus, which was used as a common analgesic to reduce pain. So the idea of this being carved with the lotus and protection and the goddess Taweret, and you give it to a pregnant woman so that you'll have like a painless, easy childbirth.
That's nice.
Yes.
Yeah. I do know hippo fact, I guess, that what's the animal that you think causes the most like human deaths in Africa? It's the frickin' hippos. By like a mile. A country mile. I think people underestimate them because I think in the West where we don't really have we don't have wild hippos, let's put it that way. It's more of like a it's like a happy little cartoon animal or whatever. But they are humongous walls of meat, and they get real ornery if you get up in their business, basically, and they will get you.
I think a lot of people are very scared of carnivores like crocodiles and
lions.
And in the United States or North America, I should say, we'd be scared of like bears and wolves.
Yeah.
But you know what animal kills more people in national parks?
Moose.
Buffalo.
Really?
In American national parks. Moose, I guess, up in Canada.
I don't actually know about moose. I just guessed.
Buffalo.
Buffalo. Yeah, I mean, because they travel in packs.
And
they don't like to
huge.
be bugged. Yeah, absolutely.
And
they won't bug you if you leave them alone.
Yeah. But
that's not always easy.
But people are like, oh, it's an herbivore. I can go up and pet the buffalo.
No.
Or like honest to God, who wouldn't see a baby buffalo and be like, oh, I can go pet it? And no.
Yeah,
don't
you'll
do
die.
That.
I mean, a baby hippo the same way. I've seen baby hippos from a zoo or whatever, and it was very cute, and I would love to pet it. And if you tried to do that in the wild, you're going to die.
Yep. So, and weirdly enough, the smaller black bears are more dangerous than the large grizzlies. They kill more people too. So it's like people go around being scared of like big giant carnivores. Nah, it's the herbivores and the little guys.
But basically, this goddess being represented by a hippo, like that's fierce. I think some people are like, the happy Humpty Dumpty little hippo. No, the people of Egypt knew that the hippo was not to be played with. So it's more of like a mama bear energy than like, a little goofy guy.
Yes. Good point.
Yeah.
So the root of the lotus or water lily contains pain-relieving apomorphine alkaloids and was used in prescriptions for headaches, rashes and sores, stomach problems, constipation, and more. And that's another one that we still use today.
Yeah.
Because the apomorphine alkaloids are a good opiate alternative.
Oh, interesting. Which plant is this again?
The lotus.
The lotus. I know the lotus has a lot of spiritual and religious meanings.
Sort of a combination of both. The lotus was used extensively in imagery on a lot of the Egyptian medicinal things.
Because it was a non-opiate painkiller.
Yes.
Basically.
And also just because, again, like I said, the Egyptians believed that like the image of something would imbue its power to it. So like say you didn't have access to a lotus and you were making somebody a medicine, just put that in a lotus container. And it will be imbued with the power of a lotus.
Interesting. Well, the truth is...
And maybe it will convince your patient that you've used lotus and they will feel the effects of it because of the placebo effect.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Yes. I think...
The placebo effect will absolutely be a future episode.
Yeah. I mean, we underestimate, and I think the placebo effect, I use that term a lot myself. And I wish there was a better term for it because really it's like, it's so demeaned that it's like, oh, it's just a placebo effect. Who cares? But like this like ups your survival rate from lethal illnesses.
It is an incredibly powerful, like physiological manifestation kind of a thing.
I mean, it's morale, basically. Yeah. We know in like war that morale is important.
Yeah.
It's also important if you're fighting a disease. It's just important. And honestly, just living your life.
Yeah.
If you want to have a good life, you should have high morale. Maybe that's a better term, but yeah, I do think, yeah, exactly. If you have the image of the lotus and you welcome its sacredness, then maybe that would help,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Another goddess was Sekhmet. She was the goddess of disease, pestilence, and disasters, which you would think is sort of counterintuitive to medicine. But because she was the goddess of disease, pestilence, and disasters, that meant you wanted to appease her to try and keep her from, giving you a disease.
Yeah, or maybe sparing you from one.
Exactly. So she actually became the patron goddess of physicians in this way because so many physicians were also priests and priestesses. So they would worship Sekhmet, appease Sekhmet, and people would go to them and be like, please anoint me with some of that appeasement so Sekhmet doesn't come for me.
That's funny. That's a bit bleak, honestly.
Yeah. So there were a lot of depictions of Sekhmet embracing the Ankh, which we know is the sign of life.
Yeah.
So ancient Egyptian medicine was a blend of practical surgery, herbal remedies, as well as spiritual rituals, such as incantations and amulets. Is it possible, do you think, to like truly separate those three elements? Or do you think that like incorporating the spirituality, the ritual, and the magic created like almost like a bedside manner that would boost the healing process?
I think this is what I mean by morale, basically, right? So, often, especially because there's so many spiritual traditions, I don't really believe in the specifics of it, right? But, and it's a big but, I know that morale is incredibly important in recovering even from what we would consider insignificant illnesses. So I'll give one example that but I'll give it for our listeners. My mother, when I was a child, would make me orange juice and ginger ale as like a mix drink every time that I was sick. And I still do that, but I definitely kept doing it into adulthood. And looking into it, the ginger ale that I was drinking, because ginger actually does like calm the stomach, but the ginger ale I was drinking contained 0 ginger.
Most modern ginger ale does not contain ginger.
Yes, exactly. So realistically, it had no actual herbal medicinal effect. However, it always made me feel way better, and it still does. And I think part of that is that when you're ill, you need to be hydrated, but it's hard to want to be hydrated. And ginger ale and OJ tastes delicious, but it also, I was like, I'm doing medicine. This is going to help me. It raised my morale. So my morale is going up. My hydration is going up. I'm getting all of these, like, it has like sugars and things in it. So it's a way of getting calories into my body that isn't something I have to chew.
And I also think that there's some element to it of you're being cared for.
Yeah.
Someone has made this and given it to you as a gesture of care and compassion.
And it felt special. It felt special, I think. It was like, that was my magic concoction. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I still use that, and it still works, even though I know now that there's no freaking ginger. So it's like, even though I know that if I were to look into it really further, and I could, but I'm not going to, I think I probably would find that there isn't much of a scientific basis for it working. But it works. So how could you dare say we shouldn't do this, basically? And I think there's a lot of like snooty, above thisness in medicine, and just a lot in the world, to be honest. And I actually used to have a lot of that, and it sucked. It was a very negative way of viewing and looking at the world. Mm-hmm. And now, I just take it as what it is. Every time I have this little concoction, it makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Is it scientific? Probably not. Does it work? Yes. So I'm going to keep doing it. And I think that all of these things are super important. Yeah. And for you, whatever spirituality that you may believe in or are willing to embrace, I think that's super. If it helps you, keep doing it. You know?
But not just spirituality, but also these like ritual and sort of magical elements to it. Like you're going to a priest in ancient Egypt who is your physician, and they're mixing you up an herbal concoction that has, actual medicinal benefits, but they're also mixing this for you.
Yes.
You are being given something by someone who wants to help you and make you feel better. And I think And as they're giving it to you, they're like anointing you with it. They're saying a prayer over you. They're giving you like symbols of protection and strength because they want you to feel better. And I just think there's something to be said about the way that like we distribute medication nowadays. Yeah. You go to your GP, I have a cough, they give you a prescription, you fill the prescription, you go home and you take your medicine and go to bed. And I think there's something so powerful in somebody making something that's unique for you and saying words of comfort and compassion. So there are it's very interesting, a lot of the things that were documented on the papyri, that we don't really have time to get all the way into.
Sorry.
No, not even you. I had to cut off my research at a certain point because I was getting so deeply in the weeds. Like they put moldy bread on wounds.
Wow.
And showed kind of an understanding of sepsis and a lot of these infections. And it's just so very interesting to me because it's like, where did that come from? They don't have germ theory. Where did were they just trial and erroring? Did they understand why this worked? Or were just like, I don't know, Jehoshaphat tried it one time and it worked. And that's like so crazy to me when I'm looking at all of these like ancient Egyptian things. Like I can kind of understand like honey, for example. It's sticky. You need to put linen bandages on somebody. You put some honey on there and it helps the linen bandage stick better, right? So it's secured to the person. And then you find that people who have honey in their bandages live longer than people who don't have honey in their bandages. And so you're like, honey must have some kind of property. It's keeping the wounds safe. And you can kind of like these sort of scientific methods of advancing your knowledge work. But like then there's like stuff that's wild and out of the world. How did they know that removing this damaged part of the skin would help somebody survive more, or suturing back someone together, or the moldy bread thing?
I used to be fascinated by this as well, and I didn't understand it. And I think I do now, actually, and it's really cool. But basically, like bread, for example. How on earth did we get to bread, basically? It takes a lot of processing steps, in my opinion. But here's why, in my opinion. The wonderful, beautiful thing about humanity is that we are all very different from each other. And if you go the distance between someone at 1% of one scale and someone at the exact opposite, 100% of the opposite end of the scale, is sometimes humongous. And I also think necessity is the mother of invention. But I also think people just try absurd things that they really ought not to and shouldn't, but they do anyway. And sometimes those things are really useful.
Yes.
And sometimes, unfortunately, they die, which is why I wouldn't recommend that people do this, but it's incredible that humanity as a whole does.
I know.
Because I know that there was someone, I want to say in Brazil, but maybe South America, who was a drug addict, basically, and they crushed up a butterfly and injected it. And
Wasn't it a spider?
Another person also did a spider. Yes, a black widow spider. That was a different person. So this has happened 2 times with 2 different bugs. Don't do this. It almost killed both of them. They had to get a lot of medical treatment, and it didn't get them high. Let's put it that way. But imagine, like, if it had done something, that's how medicine, or bread, in my opinion, is discovered, basically.
Well,
someone does something absolutely off the wall that they shouldn't have done in a million years, and 999 times out of 1,000, they just die, or they're, like, horrifically injured. But 1 time out of 1,000, they discover a new medicine. And it's really beautiful to me, even though I definitely don't think you should do this. Please don't do this. That humanity as a whole does this to some extent, that we're so different. That even sometimes people that I think of as, like, just ridiculous, like people who believe in a flat earth or whatever, right? The fact that there are people who believe in a flat earth, I actually think at this point is kind of cool, because it's like, now someone is always doing something, and that's how we slowly push the boundaries of our knowledge and science and
I agree.
everything.
I think that yes, I do think, dangerous conspiracy theories aside, I think the fact that people continue to question is what makes us human. Humans question, why is this? How does it work? Why does it work? When in what circumstances does it continue to work?
And even re-examine what we consider to be absolute truths.
Exactly.
Like, that's why I think flat earth is absurd. But the fact that some people are willing to go that far and be like, maybe the earth is flat, is pretty incredible, honestly.
I do admire it in a certain sense. I admire the one guy who was a flat earther for many, many years. And then he decided, screw it. I'm going to do the science. I'm going to do the math. I'm going to prove a flat earth. And in his process of applying the scientific method and studying, he was like, I've proved the earth is round.
Yes. I do think you have to you have to be willing to admit that you're wrong. You have to keep an open, I mean, you don't have to, but you should if you want to be a good human who actually accomplishes anything worthwhile.
Yes.
But yes, you have to keep your mind open. You're right. I mean, I think that guy is great. He said, I don't know that I believe that the earth is round because everyone says it to be, but how could I prove it? People told him a lot of things that are relatively easily provable. Like, you can see the mast of a ship going down. But that wasn't enough for him. So he did a lot of science. He went to Antarctica, I think, in the end. And then he was like, okay, I can see it with my own eyes now, and I believe it.
Yeah.
But, like, a lot of the things that I think we accept as common truths probably are wrong, and we're all just going along with it because that's just the way that it is. And that sucks, actually.
Yeah.
And I have noticed, like, a lot in science, in archaeology even, especially, what often happens is that you have to wait for the older scientists to die, basically, because they're like, we believe that this is the way that it works, and we're in charge because everything is run by old men.
Yeah, there is like an old academia wall that I think a lot of young scientists are currently trying to get over. And that's why when I do a lot of the research that I do, I see a lot of new things, like people looking into honey again, because some old academic guys like, we don't do honey. Honey is something old. Why your granny used to tell you to put honey on your skinned knee. We don't do that. We do real science here. Yeah. And then some young scientist person who wants to explore and expand the bonds of our knowledge is like, I don't think so, but old man.
I think that young people are able to change a lot easier because they haven't experienced as much. Mm-hmm. It's hard when you've been doing something for 30 or 40 or 50 years to be like,
I totally
it was all a lie.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that's great. But I think also that one of the things a lot of these conspiracy theorists forget is that, yes, the whole point of science is that it's constantly changing. And the point of questioning your beliefs is that you then can re-question them when presented with new evidence.
I think to be the best you can be, you should absolutely always be willing to question anything that you believe and really think about it. And, I do think that there are ways this could go really poorly.
Yes.
I think a lot of conspiracy theories appeal to people because they want to feel like they have some special super secret knowledge and they're better than everybody else.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be like that, you know? You could just be like, okay, well, I find this fascinating. I wonder if maybe this is real. Look into it. Maybe you find evidence for it, evidence against it, and then you can start to make up your mind. And then if new evidence comes in, you do have to not be so stubborn, which is something I really struggle with, which is funny because I've changed my entire life ideology and religion twice. But you know what? I did that when I was younger, and now I'm 33 and I don't want to. But you still have to. You really do. It makes you better. It's the best way. You should always be able to improve. I do think you can teach an old dog new tricks. If you're 80 years old and something bothers you and it's bothered you for the last 80 years, think about it. Maybe you can change it.
Yes. All right. So that covers the first part of our, episode, Ancient Egypt. We're going to jump into talking about our dogwood. So we have our sticks today.
Yes.
As per usual, you may take a stick, or you can check if you can compare the two if you want to decide which of them you'd rather
No, that's
have.
all right. You handed me a lovely stick, my dear. I like it. Actually, it's nice.
Yes. So this is the European dogwood.
Okay.
So there's two basic species of dogwoods. We have the European species, which we are holding in our hands, called Cornus sanguinea, also known as the common dogwood or blood twig dogwood, which you may have interred from the use of sanguinea in the name. Sanguine is a Latin word for bloody.
I did know that.
So
yes.
The American version of the dogwood is the Cornus floridea, or just Florida, which is the flowering dogwood. And it is a much more flowery tree. What a dumb thing to say, sorry. But
Who says?
the flowering
it's fine.
dogwood is much more showy than the European dogwood.
Now you have to say something nice.
My hair looks really good today.
It does. Your hair is banging.
Thanks.
It's gorgeous.
Thank you. Like I said, sanguinea means bloody, which refers to the blood red branches that are actually the most vibrant in the winter. The striking appearance is the heart of its folklore and spiritual connection.
I was going to say that the bark of this is like a gorgeous, deep brownish
red. It has a very ruddy color to it.
Ruddy, that's a good word. That's the word of the day.
In British and Celtic folklore, the red stems were seen as a powerful protection charm. It was believed that carrying a piece of the blood twig dogwood would ward off evil spirits and negative magic. In some regions, it was planted near homes as a guardian tree. There is also a lesser-known legend that connects it to the hounds of the otherworld, that the fairy or spectral hounds of the wild hunt would sometimes be seen running through thickets of dogwood, their passage leaving the branches stained red with blood. Fun story.
That's awesome.
Yes.
It's hardcore.
Yeah.
As they say.
Pretty cool indeed. Its hard, dense wood was also very practical and used for many practical purposes. It was the wood of choice for making early butcher's skewers, which were known as dags, or then dogs, which is one proposed origin for the name dogwood.
And hot dogs?
Dags.
Hot dags?
So basically, your butcher would skewer your meat, because a lot of the twigs are thinner too, but they're still quite sturdy.
But I'm saying a hot dog. Do you think they were cooking hot dogs on
You could.
dogwood skewers?
Yeah, you could.
Is that where it came from?
I don't think so.
I choose to believe that it is.
I don't
Me
know.
when I spread misinformation on the internet.
It was also used for tool handles
Yeah.
and machinery parts that required strength and resistance to wear.
It is I could tell it's a very
tough.
sturdy.
It's not bendy.
They made bows out of dogwood too, right? Didn't they?
I don't know. It's not very bendy.
It isn't very bendy. That's true, actually. You have to wonder, maybe it's too not bendy enough for like a bow. Maybe a ship hull would be nice.
So about the American dogwood,
So what makes them both dogwoods? How
they're
are they
both
related?
cornus.
Are they genetically related then?
Correct.
Interesting. Okay.
Correct. So flowering dogwood typically blooms from mid-April to mid-May, depending on how warm it gets in your region.
Is this like they were then Dogwood's ancestor dates back to Pangea or whatever?
Probably.
And then
it was like when I talked about birch and I talked about how like it came down from the ice. So a lot of
it was hotter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was hotter and then it was very cold. So some trees came up from the south, like the equator, and some came down from the north.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So it's traditionally been used for turning. So anytime you have to make something like tool handles, turning is like when you turn and carve as the wood spins. So it's a very good wood for that. It's also traditionally used as a shuttle for weaving due to its toughness. But the shuttle is what you push through the threads to pull the string through the weaving. So the shuttle goes back and forth.
I was thinking this feels like a very good weaving wood.
Yes.
It's very sturdy, but it has like a little bit of give. But I can tell it's got
Yes.
It's got some
also,
some
when
chutzpah to
you're
it.
looking at the like survivalist communities, dogwood is known as the best spindle for making friction fires with either a bow drill or a hand drill. So
I do know the bow drill is the key to my understanding. I tried to make a friction fire as a very, very young child. It is way, way, way harder than you think.
oh my god, the
If someone in a
television
cartoon goes
and
like this and it
cartoons
just makes a fire,
made it
you wish.
they made it seem so easy.
Yeah, it is not that easy. It's like really, really hard work.
Yes.
And then the bow drill makes it possible, basically. Doing it by hand is borderline impossible unless you're very fit and have you have to cut a notch in the wood the right way and a notch in whatever you're using. And you have to have some skill and knowledge. If you're doing it for the first time, you pretty much need a bow drill. But bow drills are like caveman technology. It really isn't that complicated. It's a string and a stick, basically. So
True. So major safety note when we start talking about the medicine of the dogwood, fresh leaves and berries are toxic of all varieties of dogwood. So are the flowers. So the medicinal use is almost exclusively focused on the bark.
toxic, just like totally deadly toxic.
Yeah,
or-
causes upset tummies.
Oh, okay.
Not deadly toxic,
Okay.
I don't think. Mildly toxic is what it's described as.
Interesting.
Probably will give you horrible diarrhea.
That's usually what that means. Yeah.
90% of the times when they're like mildly toxic, you're going to get bad diarrhea.
Yeah.
So
Don't eat it.
the bark is traditionally used. It is a febrifuge, which is something
That's the word of the day. Febrifuge? How do you even spell that?
Febrifuge. Febrifuge.
Okay.
And that is something to break fevers. Like a lot of illnesses are just basically like you'll die of the fever in old times because it was so painful. Like your the fever is draining you of all your fluids and minerals, and then you die of dehydration or whatever.
I know that's how a lot of malaria was. Yeah.
Specifically, malaria is in fact something dogwood was used for.
Witness the power of my approximate
Yes.
knowledge of many things.
Yes. So used to break the fever of intermittent diseases like malaria. It was a very strong and bitter tonic. It's astringent as well as very high in tannins. So it was also used as external wash to staunch bleedings from minor wounds.
I know that tannins can be really good for that, yeah. They also taste god-awful if they have a very strong concentration of them.
Yes.
But I know that more random survivalist knowledge, you can actually eat acorns and turn them into flour, but they're so full of tannins.
You can't eat them raw.
Yes, they'll kill you.
Yeah,
But
so-
that's because of the tannins.
Yes.
They're so full of tannins that they need to be processed,
Prepared,
basically.
yes.
And that processing will give you an absolutely stupid amount of tannin water. which can actually be used. I think it has antiseptic properties even.
Yeah, that's what this is. Basically, anything that is astringent and has a
Yeah.
lot of tannins in it is a really good skin wash.
So they use that.
So if
the
you
dog
have
bark. Dogwood even.
dogwood bark, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Dog bark. I guess those words were close enough together that I was just like, the wood part isn't important.
yeah. In colonial times, the twig of the dogwood was used as a toothpick or toothsticks. So if you chew the end of it's basically like hard, but it's also soft enough that it breaks up and gets all the bits in between your teeth.
That's smart. Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, during the Civil War in the United States, the flowering dogwood was used to treat malaria and as well as an astringent that stopped wound bleeding.
I do think people don't recognize, like, the ancient Romans had to deal with malaria. It used to be in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at, like, the map of the globe, you would be surprised. A lot of the U.S. is a lot further south than you might think. So it doesn't surprise me they also had to deal with malaria.
There's a lot of swampland.
Yeah. But yeah, that's interesting. So it's good for breaking fevers.
Yeah, the dogwood was described as intensely bitter, so much so that the bitter literally shakes the frame.
Yeah.
Specific for intermittent chill and fever attacking the system.
I do. That's tannins in general, I know, and I'm sure you said this also had like alkalineness to it. Yeah, so even worse. Yeah, but yeah, if you don't treat the hell out of the acorns, you'll actually like die. First of all, and second of all, I know it would taste like absolutely wretched. Even if you treat it a lot but not enough, it's still like disgusting. But then once you've fully leached it, it's actually, I've heard, decent, and you can like make freaking acorn bread and things. I've never done it myself, unfortunately. This is just me playing a lot of survival video games and getting way into it.
So Nicholas Culpeper notes that the dogwood is under the power of Jupiter, which governs luck, nourishment, and the spirit of life. So this is sort of the sacred like aspects of the dogwood tree. An interesting Appalachian folktale is that Jesus was said to be nailed to a cross of the dogwood tree, and therefore dogwood decided to never again grow tall enough to be made into a cross again.
But so dogwood is Jupiter, really? I find that surprising, because I know that like Jupiter is the brightest planet, basically, in the night sky. So that's why like Zeus was Jupiter, because that's the most important one, because it's the shiniest and it's the biggest. So I guess they must have thought that Culpeper must have thought dogwood was very significant if he assigned it the biggest, brightest star in the sky, basically.
Yes.
Or planet, rather, not a star, but still.
Yeah. So the dogwood is considered a tough little tree. It grows in the understory of the canopy. It blooms early and offers extremely dense wood and powerful medicine. They encourage us to develop grit, determination, endurance, resiliency, and adaptability. Although she doesn't have much stature, she is sure of herself and able to face the world with confidence. So, a couple of interesting things that you can do with dogwood. So, creating a protective talisman or wand, obviously, if you have access to a fallen branch or twig of the dogwood. The red color is a natural protectant, and you can tie a red thread around it to amplify that protective energy.
Ooh.
Hang it above your door or in your workspace as a reminder of strong protective boundaries that you are cultivating.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
You should set strong boundaries. That's something I struggle with, honestly. Maybe I'll hold on to this.
Another good ritual that you can do with the blood twig dogwood. The blood color is symbolic of the life force, but also of release. You know, bloodletting we've talked about with the Middle Ages. So it's often considered a color of allowing things to flow out of you, right? A ritual for letting go. So take a biodegradable friendly piece of paper and red ink and write down a habit, a fear, or something that is no longer serving you. Take your dogwood twig and wrap the piece of paper around it, visualize the vibrant red color drawing out the old energy from the paper and transforming it. And then you can either bury the whole twig and paper outside, or you can remove the paper and burn it.
So, I like that. I like that a lot.
Thank the dogwood for its role in helping you release the old and make space for new growth.
I actually think I'd prefer to bury it, but unfortunately we don't have the land to do that in, because then maybe a dogwood would grow out of it, and you'd be like, I got rid of that garbage, and now I have a nice new tree that I can use to treat malaria if it ever becomes relevant.
Yes. There is a Cherokee legend of the Dogwood people, tiny little beings similar to the idea of like fairies in Europe. These stealthy beings lived in the forest, quietly helping humans learn to live in harmony with the trees. They were very protective of babies, the elderly, and the sick.
Oh, I love that.
In the Victorian era, sprigs of dogwood blossoms were given to unmarried women by potential suitors.
Huh. Really? Why dogwood? For a strong boundary, and also like a...
I'm not sure. The Victorians, because the flowers of the dogwood have 4 petals, which are considered the cardinal directions, so to speak.
Okay.
So north, south, east, and west. So you give your beloved or someone you were interested in, not even your beloved, someone you wanted to get to know a little bit better, as an idea of like travel cardinal directions, come towards me.
Well, maybe also, I know, like the Victorian era is a lot of when we started to industrialize and get away from the natural roots of everything.
Yes.
So I think maybe, because I know there's like a whole language of flowers. What color is the dogwood blossom? Do you know?
White, mostly.
White. Maybe that means something in the language of flowers, and they just didn't even care about the fact that it came from this tree with all this history that they didn't know, basically.
Yeah. So another interesting spiritual connection, and my personal favorite, the dogwood tree is associated with Hecate, who is the ancient Greek goddess of magic and witches.
Ooh.
The name Hecate translates to the distant one. In Athenian homes, she brought prosperity and blessings to families as a goddess who ruled over the earth, sea, and sky. Dogs were one of her sacred symbols.
She ruled over the sea and the sky. I thought that was Poseidon and...
Well, in a much lesser form, basically. She was like magic and witches, so in the sense of like wise women, in a more local sense. You have Poseidon, he's sort of the big guy handling the main oceans. But if you're calling on, you would want to call on someone who's a little more available. It's like calling the CEO versus the local manager.
It's like a friendly nature spirit versus, a terrible doom storm that sinks a ship and then a big monster comes out and kills everybody.
Yes, another myth or idea about the naming of the dogwood. Wooden daggers were often made from dogwood, which was then called dagwood, as in dagger. So daggers are also associated with Hecate. We see them a lot. Single blades called athames are very common in like pagan witchcraft, and this is one of Hecate's symbol as well. She was often seen depicted holding a dagger of wood.
Interesting.
Yes.
I mean, maybe it's like it's a wood wand and like a...
So because she was associated with dogs so closely, they think that's how the word dagwood came to be dogwood, because it was Hecate's tree.
Oh.
So that was another theory of the naming. There's a couple different ways we think it got its name. So
I love etymology, which is also the word of the day.
Yes.
But it's like how things got their names. My favorite one is York. If you care, look up etymology of York and enjoy the hour-long deep dive you're going to spend.
I did not end up with enough time to do a full meditation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Week. No, I didn't even write one down for this week because I had so much information about ancient Egypt and all of that stuff. So that is where we are going to wind down our episode for the day. I wanted to thank you all for listening. And just a quick reminder, if you've listened all the way, we want to hear from you guys as well, even if it's just things you'd like to see in future episodes, if it's a story that you would like to share about your own health and wellness journey, please share with other people that you think might be interested in hearing stories from us. You can reach out to me directly. Like I said in the top of the episode, it's Caitlin, Caitlin, at alchemy.co.uk. It's alchymys.co.uk. You can visit our website at alchemy.co.uk and see our herbal products, as well as see where we are going to be doing markets, because we're doing some markets here in Brighton in the upcoming couple of weeks. And I would love to hear from you guys. Please, if you enjoyed the episode, give us a like, a share, a follow, a comment, all of the cool engagement things that get us more attention. We want to share as much as we can with as wide an audience of people who are interested.
Yeah, I think our wellness. And I will say, we're going to meditate when we get home, for sure. We just don't have time right now. So I really recommend, if you're listening to us and you've been following along, there are plenty of ways to find guided meditations on YouTube or whatever. Please, just, if you have the time, take the time. If you haven't meditated for a week or 2 weeks since the last time you heard us, it really does help sometimes to center yourself and just step away from all the bright lights and the problems of the world and yourself.
Part of the herbal part of the episode that I usually talk about is meditating on that aspect of nature. Mm-hmm. So even if we're not doing a dogwood specific meditation, dogwood's very common in Europe, the UK, and America. So please feel free to look it up. It may be flowering very, very soon. You can find yourself a nearby dogwood and sort of meditate on bitterness and release and the newness of spring.
And I think, just lie down. You don't necessarily, if you want to be guided, if that's important to you, you can be. But really, I think just lie down and on your bed, maybe, if you can, and close your eyes and give yourself 10 or 15 minutes and just relax and think about good things. Say a prayer, maybe, or engage in any sort of spirituality that you have along those lines. Just take a little bit of time for yourself. You deserve it.
Thank you so much for listening. This has been
Common Roots. Thank you.